Hogwarts, rising as Harry's twin with power. Like, share and subscribe. Episode 16. The boy turned his head softly, as if he wanted to say something, but he still did not open his mouth. The big green eyes gradually became unbearable. He must have been freaked out just now, right? But his strong, brave, and kind qualities made him fearless of those fears. Hermione thought with a sigh. How can there be such a kind person in this world? If she hadn't been a little far from Darren, and there were many people in the middle of cleaning up Muntungus, she would have run to the boy to comfort him by this time. Such a kind boy, she decided, in the next 7 years, she must take good care of him, cannot let him be bullied. Ding, sensing the room for the Holy Father system to play, now release a temporary mission, walk over to Muntungus, and in a tone of please, 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 and ask everyone not to hit Muntungus again. Ding, after the mission completes the memory ability of Hermione Granger, will the host receive the task? Pick up. Hermione Granger? This girl is here? Darren looked around curiously. I don't know if this girl looks like the movie version or the novel version. You must know that the movie version is very beautiful. Darren looked around in small motions and didn't find Hermione. After all, there were too many people around, and he couldn't ignore the image and twist his head like a fool in this scene. Moreover, he also needs to complete the last temporary task of the day. So he trotted quickly to the vicinity of Montinger, and said with some embarrassment, I'm sorry, but I seem to have heard him say that he knew Professor Dumbledore, so can I bring him to Dumbledore? Maybe he was really joking with me that we couldn't just bully a good guy or spare a bad guy and give him over to Mr. Dumbledore, okay? Darren well-behaved raised his head, revealing his cute white face. The watery eyes, the hearts of the people who see them are melted. This child is not only kind, but also very sensible. Look at Darren, and then at Montinger, some people feel like their fists are hard again. This bully child does not say, character is not good, all day long stealing. These people present also knew Muntungus, but none of them were willing to help Muntungus explain, which shows Muntungus's usual personality. If Mr. Darren is willing, then Paggy can bring this guy to Dumbledore. Paggy smiled and stood in front of Darren. His tone was very gentle, and looking at Darren's gaze made Darren always feel that it was the feeling of an elder looking at a junior. So what happened to this house elf? Is it difficult to treat him as a son? Cough, it shouldn't be, Lily won't cheat on a house elf. Besides, Harry's resemblance to James also represents Lily's loyalty. Or is this the Potter's undead house elves? But the original book did not mention this house elf at all, which really made him clueless. But there should be no problem, the house elf wants to harm an ordinary student, it is very simple. Especially now that he is a simple to stupid, kind enough to be a holy father, and a student who has not yet entered the school. From the outside, he has no combat effectiveness at all. These thoughts flashed through Darren's eyes, and he looked at Paige's eyes without the slightest change, still the same trust and innocence. Paggy was very relieved to see it. Worthy of being a little host. Paggy is the last house elf in the Potter family's old home. It was already very old, so when James and Lily lived outside, they didn't take it with them, only let it take care of the old house. If nothing else, Paggy would have died in the Potter's old mansion. Because James and Lily did not leave portraits before they died, it is impossible for others to know the exact location of the Potter family's old home. Even Harry, not surprisingly, could not find the Potter family house in this life. Just a few days ago. The portrait of the First Lady Potter of the Potter family, sensing a phoenix breath, also appeared on the descendants of the Potter family, sending him out to inquire about the situation. With this question, I realized that so many things had happened over the years. Master Jamie and Lady Lily had passed away, leaving only the two little masters outside. The first thing it found was Dumbledore, who spoke of his suspicions. He thought the phoenix breath might be because of Darren. Darren was still asleep in the school infirmary, so he went to Harry again. Young Master Harry was startled by it, and also alarmed Petunia's family, and almost quarreled. However, Paggy still understood the situation, and then returned to the Potter old house and reported the situation to the family's ancestor portrait. After discussion, everyone agreed that young Master Harry, who was protected by Lily's blood curse, compared to having the status of a savior. Little young Master Darren may need its protection even more. As a result, little young Master Darren became its little master. At first, it didn't understand why young Master Harry had such a miserable life, and why didn't the Patriarch send it to protect young Master Harry? It wasn't until it saw young Master Darren that it knew that young Master Darren would need it more than young Master Harry. Darren the little host was so kind. He was like the patriarch of the Potter family. Kind, brave, not afraid to be strong. Their eyes were tough, and no one was more like the ancestors of the Potter family than the little master of Darren. Paige couldn't help but marvel. I quietly pressed the video recorder around my waist again. The idea of this video recorder leads to the Potter family's old house. As long as it turns on the videotape, the Porter ancestors of the old house can also see what it sees. The only trouble is that this recorder needs to be pressed from time to time, otherwise its signal will be interrupted. Fortunately, Paige is a house elf and it doesn't feel tired. It just hurts its little master. Its little owner grew up from small to large, because of such excellent quality, must have suffered a lot. It must take good care of the little host Darren. Episode 17, Little Master Darren, I will now send him to Mr. Dumbledore, and you can wait in this sweet shop, where the little ones love the cakes. Peggy smiled and pulled Darren to the dessert shop and sat down, and ordered him a piece of cake, which took 3 turns and pulled Mundangas away. But after a while, Darren saw Peggy's phantom figure return, and then took away a cute-looking girl. Peggy also said something to those who remained around to watch the bustle, and then Mr. Granger was taken away by them. Darren touched his chin, not knowing what Dumbledore was going to do with it. It seems like it's a lot of noise. Alas, he did not expect that the original fight, which may not even have a few words, would make such a big fuss. Darren sighed sadly. Boy, it's not good to eat cake anymore. A voice disrupted Darren's train of thought. Darren had to lower his head and look at the cake in front of him, which looked very delicious. According to the psychological age, he is already an adult. Will he be ridiculed for eating this kind of childish woman's food? However, smelling the sweet smell of the cake, he still couldn't help but take a bite of it. Well, he definitely didn't love to eat this kind of thing, he just worried that Peggy would waste money. It was as if Peggy had just seen the clerk give the clerk a golden gallon. Although he had only seen the Harry Potter books and movies, he also knew that Gingaroon could buy a lot of candy. As a result, just one cake is so expensive. Sure enough, women and children's children are the best earned. What a fragrance. Magic cakes don't have a fixed flavor. I heard that there was will and fantasy magic applied inside. Whoever eats the cake will feel that they have eaten the best cake in the world. Darren helped himself to explain, proving that he was not a glutton. He just didn't hold back. An hour later, Peggy stood amusingly at the door of the cake shop, looking at the little owner holding a large bag of cakes, and helplessly pulled out a bag of gold gallon. Fortunately, the gingy along taken out of the home this time was enough. Otherwise, Darren's little master would have to put down the packed cake. Wanting to reach the turquoise eyes of young Master Dallowin and linger on the watery colors, Peggy quietly decided that some of the Potter family's properties could still be taken out for business. Although there were only 2 little masters left at present, young Master James left 2 little golden Garen. When it went there the other day, it almost cried. Are its poor, 2 little masters going to live such a poor life? Paige, am I ordering too much? I'm sorry, I was thinking of too many people who were good to me, and I haven't given them a gift yet. The first time I had tasted such a delicious cake, I was going to give it to Professor Dumbledore and Professor Snape. Try them all. And Paige, I don't know who you are, but you must be my very good elder. Although I am sometimes called stupid, but you are so good to me, I can't ignore your kindness to me. I'm sorry Paige, forgive me for enjoying your kindness to me so much. Darren lowered his head, and his eyes turned red. He seemed to be trying his best not to shed tears, just so as not to let the house elves in front of him think too much. Ding, congratulations to the host for getting father plus 100. Darren accepted the father's value in doubt. Isn't that right? The last time he and Dumbledore were alone with him, he often received 25 father's values. He thought it was only Dumbledore around, so he would only give 25 father values. But now he only had Pesci by his side, which should also be 25 Holy Father values, and the result was 100. Is it not the number of people who receive the value of the Father, but perhaps the amount of people who have touched others? What he said made Peggy extra moved, so why is it so much? Very likely. Darren was thoughtful. It was a sneer at Dumbledore in his heart. The old man looked particularly touched by him on the surface, but in fact, although he was moved, he was only touched a little bit of fur. Obviously, the old man's heart is hard, or he hasn't found the old man's touching point yet. Darren expressed disdain for Dumbledore. Hate this old man. In a moment, he would add some dung bombs to Dumbledore's cake. Of course, even if he had a bunch of bad ideas in his heart, on the surface, he was still the little boy who pretended to be strong. Peggy was very touched when she saw it. Suction. Peggy sucked her nose fiercely, took out a handkerchief and wiped the tears from her eyes. Oh, Darren's little master is too kind. Peggy is just a house elf who is about to go into the ground, and the little master still remembers to buy a cake for Peggy. Peggy is really too touched. Paige said as she cried. It felt that it was not actually very good to Darren's little master, it was just coming to take care of Darren as the old master said. But Darren remembered to buy him a cake, even with the money he had taken out. Darren's little master even said that he was good to him, like an elder. Woohoo. Peggy felt that she was dead now, and she was dead without regrets. Darren really did not expect that the house elves would cry so shockingly. He also thought that the description of the house elves in the original book was a bit distorted, and it was clear that Pocky was very clean, very polite, and had its own personality. But now watching Paggy cry like a tearful man, Darren only felt goosebumps rise. Don't cry. Darren stumbled with sincere comfort. Don't cry, he can't stop crying. Pashi, if you continue like this, I will not dare to collect the father's value from you in the future. Episode 18. After soothing Paige, Darren remembered Hermione and Muntungus. The little master was so kind and remembered the Muggle man and his daughter. Paggy couldn't help but sigh and pressed the video recorder around her waist to continue. Paggy sent the man named Muntungus to Mr. Dumbledore's office, and Mr. Dumbledore said that he was very grateful to the little master, and that he would take care of the matter. Of course, if it were not for the little master, there would have been a terrible Muggle attack here, thanks to the little master's righteous hand, which was spared. Paggy looked adoringly at Darren, her big eyes about to sparkle. Darren looked away slightly weakly. This. Without his involvement, the accident might not have happened. Cough, not as exaggerated as you say, I just made some trivial contributions. And it looks like an oolong, and it might have been better if I hadn't shown up. But Paggy obviously didn't think so. It proudly raised its hand and exaggerated exclaimed, no, it must be a murder. My little master is the kindest kid in the world, he stopped a riot, and he is so humble that he can even apply for the World Peace Prize. Don't say it. Darren watched the people around him who were attracted to Pashi's eyes, embarrassed, and eager to use his toes to cut out a Hogwarts on the ground. He felt that the creature of the house elves, for him, was simply a genius. Paige obviously didn't get Dallin's thoughts. It is also immersed in the mood of praising the little master. Little Master Darren, you are the greatest little wizard in the world, and when you grow up, you will be the second Dumbledore. Darren covered his face silently, a little farther away from the awkward house elf. If I'm guilty, let Merlin punish me. Okay Paggy, I need to buy a wand, you help me send all these cakes back. Darren cried out in lamentation. Forget it, he didn't want to know the follow-up. He was afraid that today the society would die in Diagon Alley. Paige followed suit, took the cake from Darren's hand, and the phantom disappeared into place. Although it appeared again in the next second, it still made Darren feel a great sigh of relief. At least Paggy was in a calm mood now. Little master, before we buy the wand, we may need to take out some money, and Paige has spent all that she has brought out. Paggy said guiltily. There are not many gold gallons in the Potter family home, only some property titles and shampoo formulas. If they want Jingaroon, they need to run their own factories. Or rent out the plots. But Paggy hadn't thought of this before, it was really useless Paggy. Paggy raised her hand to punish herself, but was quickly stopped by Darren's eyes. Okay Paggy, you're already very good, I don't know anything, I need your help in the future, you don't want to learn from other house elves to punish yourself. That would seem a little too fake for his holy father. Save others outside, let your house elves punish themselves at home. Man will collapse. The little host was so kind. Paige screamed. Darren sighed and quickened his pace toward Gringotts. He only hoped that Paggy would return to her original form as soon as possible. Please, please, please. Gringotts is said to be the safest place to stay outside of Hogwarts. It is a bank run by goblins. The staff came and went, all of them goblins. They look arrogant and dismissive. Some also speak loudly to customers. The service here is very bad. And it's not safe to save money here. In the original book, Gringotts was broken in at least twice. Hello, sir, what kind of business do you do? Seeing Darren come in with a house elf, a goblin who looked very old rushed to greet him. Families with house elves are generally long-established families, and these people are very noble. Our little master is going to the vaults of Harry Potter and Darrenport, this is the key. Paggy placed a small key in front of the goblin. This was given to it by Dumbledore, and after the deaths of Lily and James, their treasury keys were temporarily kept by Dumbledore, who had been prepared to give them to Harry when Harry started school. As a result, now that the Potter family's house elves had arrived, he naturally handed them over to Paige. Harry Potter, Darren Porter? The Potter family has 2 heirs, and it is really thriving. The old goblin took the key and looked at it, and gave a slow compliment. Paige raised her head proudly. That's all thanks to the previous Mrs. Potter. She gave birth to 2 little masters, especially Darren's little master, which was so cute. Fortunately, Paggy didn't say it, otherwise Darren might die here today. Social death. After confirming that the key was real, the old goblin called a young goblin. Pull the ring, it will take you to the vault. The goblin, named Laring, glanced at Darren with curiosity in his eyes. A few days ago, a student named Harry Potter came to withdraw the money. I don't know if it is this Darren Porter brother or brother. Moreover, Harry Potter is extremely poorly dressed, and this Darren Potter also carries a house elf. Is there any hidden secret? But that had nothing to do with him. He, Rowan, will never bow down to these wizards. Looking at the pole ring that Proud was leading the way in front, Darren carefully looked at it for half a day. This is also a very famous goblin that appeared in the original book. The first time it appears in the first part, Harry goes to Gringotts to get money, which is the way it takes. The second time in the Deathly Hallows, Rowan asks Harry for the Gryffindor sword, and even promises to take them into Gringotts and come out safely. As soon as he got the sword, the guy informed Gringotts that he had run away with the sword. It's a pretty sinister guy. Unexpectedly, Darren withdrew money at Gringotts for the first time, and it was this guy who led the way. Is it possible that he will have to break into Gringotts in the future? Episode 19. The thought only went through Darren's mind once, and he threw it to the back of his mind. It's so uncivil. How could he, who aspired to let his father shine all over Hogwarts, do such an ungraceful thing? But if you don't have any money, maybe you can steal the Gryffindor sword from the Sorting Hat and exchange it for money here in the zipper? Darren thought about this possibility in his heart, and with a good-willed gaze, he kept patrolling the ring. Let the still very young goblin pull the ring, suddenly feel a chill. Is it cold? Pull the ring and rubbed his hands. Looked around. Darren silently looked away. It occurred to him that if he could steal the Gryffindor sword from the Sorting Hat, why not steal the golden Garron directly from Malfoy's gang of Slytherin nobles? Maybe you can steal the richest man? This. While Darren pondered the feasibility of the idea, Pull Ring finally stopped the car. Well, here it is. Pull the ring off the trolley and open the door to the vault. A puff of green smoke came out, and when the green smoke cleared, Darren opened his mouth in shock. What money to steal? He's Darren, clean and self-contained. There is so much money in it. He had heard the original book describe Harry's parents' property, but looking at the original Harry Buckle search, firebolt arrows were reluctant to buy, and thought that there were not many. Who knows this, to see for yourself. Inside there are piles of gold gallons, silver bars, and mountains of bronze coins. That's at least 300,000 gold gallons, 2 million silver seco, copper nut pad and not counted. Too poor, really too poor, 2 little masters to spend 7 years with such a little money. Paige is such a bad elf that she didn't come out early to help the 2 little masters take care of the family business. Peggy took out her handkerchief and wept sadly. A pair of big eyes looked at Darren with pain. His poor little master could only use such a little gold gallon? When young Master James was a child, a set of wizard's robes required thousands of gold gallons to make, as well as ordinary clothes, dresses, shoes, daily necessities. Just 300,000 gold gallons, or a year will not be there. And his poor 2 little masters actually took 7 years. 7 years, what kind of savings will the 2 little masters become? What is this concept? This is to kill the old master's heartache. Peggy patted her thigh in remorse. Darren looked at Peggy in amazement. 300,000 gold gallons are rare? You must know that when Harry was on the train, he used a jing Aaron to wrap up all the snacks on the train. According to the exchange rate that Rowling said in 2001, 1 gallon equals 5 pounds, which equals more than $7. At that time, the purchasing power was very large, and according to the proportion of 2020, it may have to be 10 times higher. So many golden Garrons were actually said to be poor by Pesci? Even if he used it with Harry, he felt that he could spend his life in the wizarding world without making money. Not only Darren, but the pull ring at the door is even more ignorant. It stood outside the door and didn't come in, but it also saw the mountains of gnats, silver coins, gold gallons. How could this be called poor? This is all called poverty, so what is the name of the 100 golden Garron wealth that he has accumulated in the ring? Is it called pocket money? Lahuan turned silently. Stupid house elves. Little Master Darren, rest assured that it will not be long before the Potter family's business spreads throughout the wizarding world of England. Although Peggy is old, she has also helped the owner of her hometown to take care of business, and Peggy will definitely make the 2 little masters rich. This. Darren was shocked. The house elves are definitely very reliable big butlers. And it is also passed down from generation to generation, faithful. After serving Grandpa and serving his grandson, he now has to go out to earn money to support him and Harry. Why did Harry confiscate Dobby? Let Dobby work for him. This is going to collect Dobby, didn't he get rich earlier? I still can't afford to buy firebolts in the 3rd year. Of course, it may also be the reason why Dobby is too unreliable, and it feels that Dobby's brain is also a bit of a problem. In order not to let Harry get hurt at Hogwarts, he simply injured Harry himself. If I can't solve the enemy, then I will solve you, so that the enemy can't solve you. This kind of brain circuit, he did not dare to let Dobby follow him easily. Harry was probably frightened by Dobby. In the end, of course, Dobby died at the hands of Bellatrix in order to rescue Harry. He repaid with his life the freedom Harry had given him. Of course that's not the point is that he'll be richer right away. Paige, you're so nice, I've never seen you such a good house elf. I grew up in an orphanage, and while I think I'm doing well, no one really treats me as well as you do. So when you take care of business, you should also pay attention to your body. Come to see me more, you have not left, I start to think about you. And while Kim Gallen is important, you must also be safe. I'd rather I live with such a little bit of gingy along all my life than lose you as an elder. Darren pointed sadly to the pile of jingling on the ground, to show that he would rather be poor for the rest of his life than lose a good elf like Paige. Until a replacement elf is found, Paige is his most important private property. Ding, father plus 100. Oh, little Master Darren, you are the kindest person in the world, and no one can be more kind and lovely than you. But you don't know, those golden gallons are too few and too few. I can't bear your suffering. I will take care of myself at the same time, earn more golden gallons for the little master. Paige is sure to make little Master Darren the richest kid in the world. Episode 20. Paggy wiped her tears and screamed with emotion. The pull ring outside the door was even more silent. He shouldn't be here, maybe he should be under the trolley. Suffer? Kindness? Obviously, these two words are recognized. Why does it always feel so disgusting to come out of their mouths? Obviously, the person and the elf inside said that it was very moving, and the pull ring was not moved, and it even wanted to laugh a little. But it held back. Okay? It's almost time for the trolley, pull the ring urging. The desire to throw up was already filling its mind, and these two were not over. It was afraid that it was going to go straight in and pull them out. I hope that in its career, it will not hear the words poverty and kindness again. Somehow, suddenly, it became allergic to those two words. Darren followed Paige's advice and took 10,000 gold gallons, 30,000 silver sickles, and a number of copper naties from Gringotts. Incidentally, a golden gallon was spent in Gringotts to buy a wallet that had been cast under the spell of permanent space. Only then, in the malicious gaze of Lahuan, dragging Pesci, who was still lamenting that Darren's little master would live a life, came out of Gringotts. Darren almost escaped from Gringotts with his face covered. Thinking of the surprised eyes of many people in Gringotts just now, Darren felt that he wanted to leave the planet. Obviously what he wanted was a good reputation, but watching Paggy spare no effort to introduce his kindness to everyone, he almost cried out in embarrassment. He should have painted Paggy's favorability too high, causing Paggy to now become a Potter blower completely. Okay Paige, we need to go buy a wand. Darren interrupted what seemed like a passerby to preach his feet. Okay, little Master Darren. Paggy happily carried Darren's purse and caught up with Darren's footsteps. Paige was happy to serve the little host Darren. No. Ollivanders wand shop. Founded in 382 BC. The only wand shop in Diagon Alley. This shop is quite famous in Europe. It is also the place where every protagonist in fanfiction has to come to punch the clock. Good afternoon. A soft voice said. Darren looked up and an old man was standing in front of him. He had silver white eyes. The look in Darren's eyes seemed to be sparring. Hello. Darren responded politely. Oh, I knew you were here when Dumbledore told me Harry Potter had a younger brother. Ollivander looked carefully at Darren's face and continued in a voice nostalgic for the past. Your hair and eyes are almost exactly the same as your mother's, but your mouth is shaped like your father's, and his smile is always handsome. Everything was like yesterday. I'm so old that I always like to miss the past. Child, no one listens to my nagging with such curiosity as you do, and they will always think I am nervous. Ollivander sighed softly. Darren blinked his eyes, well-behaved, and grinned. I don't think you're nervous. I love to hear you say this, because it can be another episode of Water. Ollivander shook his head. Your mother has chosen 10¼ of an inch, a wand made of wicker, a good helper for magic. Your father chose an 11-inch mahogany wand for transfiguration, to be the best option. Of course, I said they chose the wand, in fact the wand chose the wizard, and here you will find your wand. Ollivander stopped his voice and looked at Paige, who was waiting behind Darren. You are. I remember, you're Fremont's house elf Paige. Are you here to pay dividends? Dividends? What dividends? The old master bought 10% of the shares in the Ollivander wand shop. Yes? Darren looked at Paggy in shock. No way? So awesome? It was Darren's grandfather, Fremont, who asked Paggy to buy it, and then the old master didn't know where to put the shares, and Paggy went back to look for it. Paggy knocked on her head and said. It is really old, and if it had not suddenly heard from its little master, it might have chosen to die this year. Although it is impossible to let the owner cut off his own head and hang it on the wall, it is also very good to die next to the master. But now that the little master needs it, it must live until the little master does not need it. Paggy thought silently. I didn't know that the way Darren looked at it was like looking at the ancestors. Depend on. How much money did Harry miss in the original book? And Ollivander, the old Inby, if he hadn't brought Paggy over, this cargo wouldn't have mentioned it at all. Although Ollivander may not be sure whether the Potter family has transferred this share, but why don't you ask? In the original work, this matter is not mentioned until death, which is really not very facetious. No wonder this old man knows Lily and James so well, it turns out to be his shareholder, can he not understand? He also thought that this old product really had a good memory, and everyone who bought a wand could remember it, even if that person did not sign up. But it's also possible that Ollivander really wrote down the wand of each celebrity. Of course, at this time, as a child who did not understand anything, he naturally could not think of this. You can't take the initiative to mention money to Ollivand, it is easy to collapse. So he thought about it and said to Paggy with an innocent expression, "Pashi, great, we have a stake in Mr. Ollivander's wand. Paige, you don't have to go out and earn money, you can always accompany me and my brother." "Little Master Darren, you are so lovely and kind, but Paige can't agree to your request. Because of the stake in the Ollivander wand shop, even if it is found, Paggy still needs to take it to the Ministry of Magic to register. Then reconcile the accounts here at Mr. Ollivand, because for many years, the Potters have not come here to collect dividends." Paggy looked at Darren with regret. Poor little master, must be too fond of Paggy, maybe Paggy should find a female elf to reproduce? At that time, its children will be able to accompany the little master, and the little master's children. P.S. The vote is over, there are too many Slytherin votes, that's Slytherin, but young readers who like other houses don't have to worry about collapsing. Come to think of it, Slytherin usually goes to class with Gryffindor. In class, Snape deducted 20 points for Harry helping Neville to be nosy, because Darren helped Neville have love, Slytherin plus 20 points, this picture, it is interesting to think. Episode 21. Of course, Darren didn't know what Paige was thinking, he just heard Paggy's answer and smiled with satisfaction. Slave owners should also be more motivated by slaves, especially since Paggy is also a very useful house elf. It is Ollivander's money, I don't know when it will be handed over to him. Cough, Mr. Potter, I think we can now discuss your wand. Ollivander patted his head in chagrin. Obviously I felt like I was talking too much. Perhaps the stupid house elf had forgotten about it long ago without his own reminder. As a result, after being reminded by him, they were going to come and take dividends for so many years. What a huge expense. Grindelwald was revolutionizing the wizarding world and monopolizing the source of magical creatures, causing his wand shop to almost close. At that time, Ollivander was poor and almost ran out of food, so he could only sell his shares in the wand shop to the outside world. However, everyone can also buy a magic wand from Gringotts in Germany, coupled with Grindelwald's strength, so that no one can look up to his small shop, and they all think that his small shop is going to end. Only Fremont made a large sum of money on gold gallons for selling shampoo, and was idle and bought 10% of his shares with 2,000 gallons. Not long after Fremont bought the shares, Grindelwald was suddenly defeated by Dumbledore, and his wand shop was revived. He then had to send tens of thousands of gold gallons to the Potter family every year, and this gift was for many years, until James Potter died, and he finally stopped the behavior. By default, the Ollivan wand shop is his private property. He knew very well that Harry Potter was the only one left in the Potter family. No one would know that the Potter family had a stake in the Ollivander wand shop, not even Harry Potter. Who knew that just now, he suddenly saw Pashi, and he blurted out in his heart, which was extremely remorseful. What a stroke of luck. What a fortune. Didn't this Potter cub hear about kindness? Why didn't you say that he was exempted from the dividend of shares for so many years? Ollivander thought, with resentment. Feelings of affection for Darren also plummeted. The official asked, "Which hand do you usually use?" "Right hand." Darren doesn't care about the Tau. If he had lost so much Jingaroon, he would have felt sad too. At this point, he was more curious about what kind of wand he could choose. A tape measure was measured in an orderly manner on Darren, whose nostrils were measured by it. Darren touched it and found that it was so shy that she avoided it. "Come, try this, 9 1/3 of a year long, made of poplar wood, with a unicorn feather embedded in it. It's a wand that can be trusted, inclusive, powerful, and has consistent power." Ollivander gushed about the wand. Darren picked up the wand curiously. However, there is not much hope, after all, most people have to adapt many times to choose the most suitable wand. Just as soon as he touched the wand, colorful fireworks erupted from the top of the wand. "Great, obviously this one." Ollivander praised it and was going to wrap it up for Darren. Darren looked blankly at the wand, did he really not need to change it? Huh? Just as Darren confessed his promise to take his wand, Ollivander looked up in doubt. His old face reached the other wand box. "Boy, wait, maybe you should try this wand, and just as you unleash your magic, it shakes a little." Ollivander took out the wand. Darren picked it up doubtfully. Then pink bubbles appeared all over the room. "Fantastic, wonderful, wonderful, I've never seen a wizard with 2 wands to choose from." "Hey," Ollivander was stunned again. Because at this moment, thousands of wands in the wand shop were vibrating. If magic hadn't been applied to each box, they would have probably rushed out. "Is there something wrong?" Ollivander tentatively opened a box, and the wand inside the box could not wait to rush to Darren's face. Darren looked at Ollivander, and after Ollivander nodded, he carefully held the wand. Crash! The soft mist of the whole house, every piece of fog, seemed to haunt Darren. This? Darren looked hesitantly at Ollivander. He was a little suspicious that Ollivander was playing with him. He wanted to sell him the wand he had not been able to sell for so many years, to offset the share dividend for so many years. Oh my god, it's amazing, it's amazing. Child, every wand here is telling them that they like you, and that they want to be your partner. As I said, it is the wands that choose wizards, and they want to have a great adventure with you. Ollivanders said with admiration that even if he was still worried about his share dividends for so many years, he was also attracted to Darren's special at this time. That's it. Darren scratched his hair, watching the vibration of so many wands, and hesitated, not knowing which one to choose. Mr. Ollivander, can I take them all? I can use the Potter family's dividends over the years. If Ollivander really had this idea, then he would have won, and he, the Holy Father, would not have been able to refuse the surrender of so many wands. Thinking of so many wands emitting the spell of thunderbolt explosion at the same time, I am afraid that it is even more powerful than Voldemort's Awada nibbling on the big melon. No, 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 kid. Ollivander's face was green. So many magic wands are his life's work, all at once sold, he will be empty. Child, listen to me, although you think you need so many wands, in fact you don't need them, you only need one wand, believe me. Although it is the wand that chooses the wizard, in this case, it is the wizard who chooses the wand, and today you can only take away a small treasure, Ollivander said firmly. Episode 22, alright. Ollivander apparently had no intention of paying off the debt with his wand, just let Darren pick one. But looking at so many magic wands, Darren was really a little dazed. Mr. Ollivand, you are the best master of the staff, my grandfather chose to buy your shares because of your talent, you are professional, I don't know what you recommend. Darren looked at Ollivander flatteringly. For professional things, of course, listen to the opinions of professionals. Ollivander laughed proudly. Such a compliment is very welcome, and even watching Darren is much more comfortable. Well, my boy, if you insist on it, then I can say a few more words. If you want great power, I recommend choosing the elderberry wand, which was once made of this kind of wood. Darren nodded, and he knew that Ollivander was referring to the old wand. However, this elderberry is unstable, and whoever is strong will like it. He didn't like it very much. If you have a good idea of which line of business to do, you can choose birch, chestnut, hawthorn, mahogany. Birch is Ollivander's wand that can be used to craft a wand. Kuroki is a trainer, herbalist, or person with superb flying skills. Hawthorn is the doctor. Mahogany is James's wand. Of course, if you want to spread your fame. Speaking of which, Ollivander glanced at Darren. There was some doubt in his eyes. He felt that Darren was not as kind as he had shown to be. Because Darren did not waive his share dividends. Well, though biased, forgive an old man's narrow-mindedness. Of course, the reason that made him most determined was that Darren had attracted all the wands. There are a lot of wands that are suitable for dark wizards. If it weren't for the good wand that chose Darren, Ollivander wondered if Darren was extremely dark inside. You can choose the first poplar, or you can choose cypress, pear, and large trees, and they are suitable for upright, kind, generous wizards. When it comes to generosity, Ollivander focuses on Darren as well. Darren felt that he was connotating himself. Still, he felt that the last wand was best for him. As a holy father, you certainly can't take a wand with a bad reputation. Holding a magic wand with a reputation for goodness was obviously much more effective for him to do what the father did. No one can resist a man with a wand of goodness. As for poplar, pear, cypress, larchwood, Darren is the most favorite or cypress. The owner of the cypress wand is a man of bravery, steadfastness, and self-sacrifice. It's almost talking about him. That's it. I choose cypress. Darren said seriously. Ollivander nodded. The wise choice. He put away the other wands, and chose 3 wands to place in front of Darren. I have only made 3 kinds of cypress rod cores, unicorn feathers, phoenix tail feathers, and an oriental dragon scale. A wand with a unicorn feather as a wand core is very loyal. And this phoenix tail feather. That's right, Dumbledore's phoenix feather. He sent this feather 3 days ago, and told you about your character, so I made this wand out of it. As for the scales of the Eastern Dragon, it was sent by a friend of mine who was an Eastern wizard. This dragon took off this reverse scale 11 years ago and entrusted it to my friend. It says that the person who is suitable for this wand has the heart of the world and insists on his ideals, but he is too rigid and easy to bend, hoping to protect himself. Ollivander finished looking at Darren, waiting for his choice. Darren hissed. Pick up the wand with the dragon's reverse scales, and then shoot a huge dragon figure at the top of the wand. The dragon's huge eyes seemed to look back at Darren, nodded, and then slowly dissipated. It's shocking, is this the dragon of the East? It is different from the Chinese fire dragon, and it seems to be the same name, Ollivander said doubtfully. Darren quietly rolled his eyes. What is the name of the big lizard here as a dragon? Also worthy of being called a dragon? These should be two species. Darren lovingly touched his wand. 10 1/3 of an inch long, cypress, dragon reverse scale rod core. How handsome. Darren sighed softly and touched his new wand several times. By the way, my friend also said Mr. Canglong, let me pass on a word to the wand I bought. When Ollivander saw that Darren was ready to kiss his wand, he finally couldn't help but interrupt him. What words? Darren looked up curiously. For the dragon to know that he would come, he did not feel that there was any problem. There are wizards in this world, maybe there are still gods and immortals in the East. Gotta buy it. Ollivander intensified his tone. Darren rolled his eyes. When the little master is poor? When who can't afford your wand? How much? Darren said broadly. 10,000 gold gallons. What? Darren's legs went soft and he almost fell on Paige. Ollivander is planning to earn back their dividends from all these years, right? He remembered that Harry Potter's phoenix-tailed wand was only 7 gallons, why was he 10,000? 10,000 gallons, he may be able to buy Mrs. Mokin's tailor shop. Oh, my poor little Darren, this is what the dragon gentleman has requested, and this is a letter from my friend, you can see. Ollivander knew that Darren had reacted this way, and to be honest, he had reacted the same way when he first saw his friend ask for it. At that time, he was still thinking, which wrongdoer would buy this thing? Tut. Darren took the letter from Ollivand, and he saw the handwriting on it. Writing about karma reincarnation, he always felt that something was wrong, and found the 2 words asking for money from the cracks. They're taking him for justice. Episode 23, Ollivander did not lie to Darren. It was true that it was 10,000 gold gallons, and that the money was not all for Ollivand, but half of it was for Ollivander, and the other half was to be mailed to them. Ollivander said that Darren could not buy it, but could choose 2 other wands, which were very cheap. His tone was quite sincere. Apparently there was no flickering Darren. Darren sighed fiercely, if he could, he also wanted to put the wand down. But at the thought of the figure of the dragon, his shameful heart moved. Depend, if it is not easy to use, he will develop in the future, and he will definitely go to find that dragon to return. Paige, pay the bill. Darren looked at Peggy and said bitterly. Paige accepted it well. When it used to take Master James, it was tens of thousands of gold gallons at every turn. And they also buy things like handmade things that are not practical. Darren's little master has spent very little. The only problem is that it has to put the matter of making money on the agenda. After paying the price of 9,999 gallons and 493 narts, Ollivander told Darren what the dragon had asked him to bring. It's a book. Journey to the West. Darren was still waiting for Ollivander to tell him more information, but Ollivander shrugged and said he didn't know either. I have studied this book and know that it is a novel from the ancient times of the East. But I really don't understand what this means. I think it may be the pit left by the dragon in order to make people dig 10,000 gallons, right? Ollivander had a playful expression. Apparently he really felt that was the case. After all, he had been doing this wand for 10 years, and in the first few years, he often studied it. For this, he also learned Chinese, but it turned out to be of no use. Darren secretly despised him. How can you fully understand the depth of my Chinese? A minute later. Holding his own 10,000 gold gallons, no, the wand, Darren walked out with a hollowed-out look. As he walked out, Ollivander quickly wrote down 2 letters and sent them out. One sent to the East with a gift of 5,000 gold gallons. One to Hogwarts. Hogwarts. In Dumbledore's office. The owl dropped a letter. An old hand couldn't wait to open the letter. Dear Albus, I received the child, and as you might guess, he caused a great stir in the wand shop, and almost all my treasures would be taken away by him. You're right, it's all. He resonated with all the wands, including some extremely evil ones. I don't know if it's good or bad, it's up to you to decide. To my surprise, though, he wasn't interested in the powerful evil wands, he only liked some wands that symbolized goodness. Maybe he's building a good persona? Just kidding, it's impossible for anyone to give up great power for the sake of so-called human beings, even you. Well, Albus, forgive me, I'm not accusing you, I'm just too angry. Do you know? In order to receive this child, I will lose nearly 100,000 gold gallons, and oh my god, my heart is strongly resisting at the thought of this number. Forget it, I don't want to talk to you about it anymore, and my heart aches like a knife when I mention it. In addition, he took the wand I had shown you a long time ago and paid 10,000 gold gallons, and I felt that he had been deceived, that wand was not worth so much at all. But you know, the wizard can also choose the wand, and he likes that wand. Well, right here, I'll have to take a good look at the golden Garen I have stored in Gringotts, and maybe tomorrow at the earliest, I may lose most of it. Your friend, Garrick Ollivander. Dumbledore put down the envelope and wrote back very slowly. Every word seems to be deliberate. Finally, he finished writing back. Summoned an owl and sent the letter to his friend, Ollivand. Dumbledore, is there a problem with that child? A portrait on the wall suddenly asked. Below her portrait reads, 1741 to 1768, Dallas. Devante. She was the only headmistress at Hogwarts and a prominent healer. St. Mungo's also hangs a portrait of her. Dumbledore looked at her and shook his head, and said in a brisk tone, No, Darren has no problem at all, but I just don't want word that he caused all the wand to shake. From my limited knowledge, there has never been a single person in history who has been able to make all wands sensational, not even Merlin. Dumbledore made a joke. But Dallas already understood what he meant. Rare means important. Spread the word, Darren is likely to be targeted by many people. Then just lock up that kid so that no one else can harm him. A portrait on the wall suddenly opened his eyes and said excitedly. Phineas, you are the most annoying headmaster, no wonder the children don't like you. Dales looked at him angrily. That child didn't make a mistake, just because he was different, he had to be locked up? So what? I don't like stupid children, I usually hang children who have made mistakes upside down in the black jail. I think Albus is too kind to them now, like those two Gryffindor twins, who are so lawless that in my day, they were expelled long ago, Phineas Black said angrily. Dumbledore smiled and shook his head, ignoring his seizures. Instead, he said in a deep voice, I need to keep Ollivander a secret, but my old friend is a braggart guy, and maybe I should go talk to him in the near future. Dumbledore's wise blue eyes flickered under the lenses. Dragons from the east. Journey to the west, is it really just a meaningless bidding? And then there's Darren's child, who he thinks might be more suitable for the Cypress Phoenix tail feather wand. He had sent Ollivet a message to Ollivet the other day, and it turned out that the child had not been chosen. To know that the godfather of this child, Remslopin, used the Cypress Phoenix feather wand, and he thought they should be the same. The result is still a gap. How could the dragon of the east be better than his phoenix? This kid made the wrong choice. Episode 24. Darren naturally didn't know that Dumbledore was lamenting that he had chosen the wrong wand. If you knew, surely the dragon of my great east was better than a hairless turkey? Joke. The more he held his dragon reverse scale wand, the more he looked at it. It was a light brown wand that was smooth and soft to the touch. Holding the wand, Darren could feel the power contained in it. Apparently this wand wasn't as simple as Ollivander had said. He didn't quite believe what he had in mind about the world, that he was too rigid and easy to fold. Because he is not a man with the heart of the world. So this wand should hide some secret in Journey to the West. He had some guesses, but he didn't know if it was accurate or not. The itchy Darren really didn't want to visit Diagon Alley. He wanted to go back and see what he had gained in the past few days. Paige, send me back, I just remembered that those cakes need to be eaten as soon as possible, otherwise they will not be delicious. As for the rest, Paige, you'll take me out tomorrow to buy it, okay? School is about to start the day after tomorrow, and he can brush up on temporary tasks here every day for the next 2 days. Good little master, you are so kind. Paige screamed in sigh. Darren humbly accepted the compliment and was taken back by Paige. After taking a shower and lying in the Gryffindor bed, Darren asked Paggy to distribute all the cakes. Then it's time to rest. What he needs now is to quietly check on what he has gained in the past few days. The first is his phoenix pet egg. Darren took out the phoenix egg and touched his chin to consider how to hatch the egg. Maybe he could just break the shell or throw it straight into the fire. I heard that the phoenix is not afraid of fire, and it should not be cooked when thrown into the fire, right? Ding, the host drops blood on the phoenix egg and it can hatch. Perhaps sensing Darren's unreliable idea, the system's voice immediately rang out. Well, how else can I eat it? Darren complained. He stuck a needle in his finger and squeezed out a drop of blood on top of the phoenix egg. Click. Immediately after the blood dripped on it, the phoenix eggshell made a cracking sound. Then a hairless turkey crawled out of it. Tweet tweet. Darren looked at this ugly little thing in silence, hesitating whether to send it to the kitchen, make a pot of turkey soup, and maybe replenish the body. Tweet tweet. The little phoenix, unaware of Darren's thoughts, rubbed Darren affectionately with his head, and then stumbled to his eggshell, generously indicating that he would like Darren to eat. Darren hesitated, curiously squeezing a piece into his mouth. Not yummy. It feels like chocolate and crunchy cookies are combined. Realizing that this was a good thing, he quickly grabbed another piece. The little phoenix obviously did not expect that he was just humble and expressed his loyalty, and the result was that the human who should not eat the eggshell of the phoenix actually ate its eggshell. Even more frightening was that he ate one piece and had to take another. The little phoenix panicked and protected his eggshell, swallowing the eggshell into his stomach with crazy speed. After swallowing it hard, it looked at Darren in condemnation. "Own little host. Tweet tweet." It chirped indignantly. Darren was not embarrassed at all, but he also showed a naive expression, curiously asking the little phoenix if he could find a way to get some more eggshells. He also wanted to taste it. Tweet tweet. The little phoenix pecked his finger lightly with her beak in condemnation. "That's the eggshell it uses to supplement nutrition, and humans can't eat it at all. The little master is such a freak." "All right." Although the little phoenix was chirping, Darren probably understood what the little phoenix meant. "It should be the reason for that drop of blood. So, I'll give you a name, by the way, are you male or female?" Tweet tweet. Mother's words, then called Carol, represents happiness. "I hope you are a phoenix, you can always be happy and happy." Ding, congratulations to the host for getting father plus 50. This. Can he still move a phoenix? Darren cried and laughed, and finally touched the hairless body of the little phoenix and pushed it aside. He took out his wand. He already had some ideas about this wand. Journey to the West is related to wands and dragons, which is Sun Wukong's golden hoop stick. Cough, because they are all sticks. So should it be said? "As you wish, according to my heart, quickly appear to the spirit." The wand has not changed. Darren smiled sheepishly and forgot that this was inside the gourd. Rui golden hoop stick? Wishful? Ding, congratulations to the host for activating the Rui wand, which can change any kind of wand wood, and can also change the core of the wand at will. After obtaining Master Transfiguration, you can change into any kind of creature at will. This? How could it be you? Darren was shocked. He thought about the possible identity of this dragon, thought about the immortals, thought about the crossers, the reborn, and the result was the system. Ding, congratulations to the host for finding the system hidden Easter egg and opening the host's character panel. Darren. System, the next time you have to reward me with something, you can be more direct. Instead of asking me to pay 10,000 gallons and buy them myself with money. Unfortunately, the system ignored him. Darren sighed and forgave the system for making a fuss this time. People panel. I don't know what the use of this panel that opens until the 24th episode is used. Name, Darren Porter. Talent points, 0. Potions talent, 6. Dark magic talents, 9. Transfiguration talents, 4. Divination talents, 2. Spell talent, 5. Animal affinity talents, 3. Plant affinity talent, 4. Items, Rui wand, Phoenix Carol. Abilities, Divine Brain Closure, Montingus's Stealing Ability, Learner's Level Memory Ability, Controllable Silence. Title, A Wand That Cannot Be Lost. Father Value, 740. Episode 25. Boy. Darren called out to the good guys. His dark magic talent was 9 points. Finished. Barbecue up. He could already imagine the reaction of the Sorting Hat at the opening ceremony. On that day, Dumbledore would sit in the headmaster's chair with a smile and watch the Sorting Hat give him the Sorting Hat. Then he would hear that. Sorting Hat, the situation is a bit complicated, but it is difficult to be a great Sorting Hat. Azkaban Academy. Although it was a bit of an exaggeration, Darren really couldn't imagine what the consequences would be for him at that time. You must know that dark wizards are people who are very talented in black magic. People who are not talented simply can't learn. Darren was flustered for a while before he remembered that the Sorting Hat couldn't see his talent, only what he was thinking. Perfect, he can continue to pretend to be the father. It really startled him. System, can these talents be increased? Darren suddenly thought of the question. He found that he didn't seem to have much else except for his dark magic talent. Only potions are 6 points, and everything else is below 5 points. Ding, host talents can be increased using the father value, 100 father points can be exchanged for 1 talent, and the maximum talent is 100. What? Darren opened his mouth. I thought talent was 10 point, and you told me it was a percentage system? Ding, wizarding talent can grow, through serious study, reading, hands-on experimentation and other processes, increase talent. Ding, all the talents of the new students are below 10 o'clock, please rest assured that the host is. This. Rest assured, I feel that magic still has a long way to go. Don't know how much Dumbledore has their talent, and how fast they are increasing. Is there any convenience that Darren uses the father's value to increase? Darren looked at the character panel. Darren's father is currently worth 740, the fruit of his nearly 2 days of labor. That is, you can redeem 7 talents. System, convert 700 father points into talent points. Ding, redemption successful. 7-point talent. Darren didn't plan to add it now, he planned to add it when class came. After all, there are not many now, and they have to be used on the blade. After sorting out his things, Darren played with his wishful wand for a while. Rui wand can be turned into wood for other wands. That is to say, he wants to study medicine and can turn Rui's wand into hawthorn wood. To learn herbalism, you can turn your wand into chestnut wood. If you want to learn to make a wand like Ollivander, or make a broomstick, you can turn your wand into birch. Even when you want great power, you can turn your wand into elderberry, holly, aspinus, larch wood. As for wanting to increase your luck, you can also turn into a lucky wand for wood. It doesn't change the appearance, but the nature changes. Darren was extremely happy with the wand anyway. Even if it cost him 10,000 gold gallons. After playing with his wand for a while, Darren called Paggy out and deftly asked the professors about how they felt. It was great. The cakes sent by Darren's little master were all praised by the professors, and even Professor Snape, who had always disliked eating cakes, nodded reservedly. Only the strange Professor Dumbledore, not knowing why he had looked at the cake for a while, said something unlucky and threw away a small piece of it. Paggy patted her head in disbelief. I don't understand what Mr. Dumbledore is all about. Darren little master so hard to bring back the cake, how can he dump a piece? Don't care about the little things, Paige, I just want to make a small contribution for everyone, especially Pashi, you've been so good to me. Ding, Father plus 100. The great Darren little host was always so kind and lovely, Paige has never seen such a nice host. Paige also told everyone at Hogwarts about little Master Darren, and they all cried bitterly, Paggy said proudly. Darren raised his head in confusion. What? Why tell the whole of Hogwarts about him? Wait, what's the point? It couldn't have been him who stopped the fight between Muntingas and Mr. Granger? He was a little weak in heart about this matter and was not prepared to publicize it. The more it is propagated, the more intelligent people will appear, and it is easy to give people the impression that he likes to be in the limelight and cause trouble. His fatherhood was obtained on the spot, and passing on too much would not give him a little more. Or low-key better. You can also gain the reputation of doing good deeds silently and sincerely as a holy father. Darren was about to ask when he heard Paggy continue excitedly. Little Master Darren just asked Paggy to rest, he's really nice. It's just that Paggy met several professors on the way to rest, and they all wanted to know what had happened to Little Master Darren before. So Paggy went to the orphanage where Little Master Darren had been, asked him about Little Master Darren, and came back to tell the professors. The professors were crying, they said that Little Master Darren had suffered a lot before, and asked Paggy to take good care of Little Master Darren. The professors didn't ask about the other things, and Paggy didn't say anything. This. Darren really didn't expect that the professors at Hogwarts were still quite gossipy. However, it was indeed more helpful for him to pretend to be a holy father in the future. Okay, but Paggy won't talk about it later. If someone asks you, you will say that I used to be fine, and I don't want to cause trouble for others, you know? Ding, Father plus 100. Darren accepted the serendipity and solemnly instructed. Although telling everyone about his past would allow his father's name to be transmitted further. But to tell people everywhere is too fake. Instead, it gives people that he is doing well, and people have a more desire to explore, and they will be more curious about his past. Then inquire. Hey, isn't his father's man stable? Well, Little Master Darren is always so kind, and Paggy will be obedient. Paggy nodded, her surprisingly large eyes showing pain. Its little master always thinks so much about others, why doesn't he think more about himself? Obviously, letting everyone know his past will make people feel sorry for him, but he still chooses to bear the pain himself. Episode 26. It was late at night after dealing with Paige. Darren's little child's body finally felt sleepy, and just turned over, and fell into a deep sleep. By the time I woke up, the sun was already pouring on the earth. Finish freshening. Paige brought a portion of cereal porridge and 2 pieces of syrup cake. Maybe it seems that Darren likes to eat sweets, and there is a lot of sugar added to the cereal porridge. Darren always felt that he might get diabetes later. Little Master Darren, are you going to Diagon Alley? Go. Of course you have to go. Darren wiped his mouth and touched his stomach, content to go to Diagon Alley to brush temporary tasks. Paggy smiled and nodded, taking his phantom to Diagon Alley. Diagon Alley is still bustling. The closer you get to school, the more people there are in Diagon Alley. There are always students who have to wait until the beginning of the school year to buy books. Darren saw an elderly old lady reprimanding her grandson. As he approached, he heard her say, Neville, how come you can't always remember things? Lost Garen, how do we buy things? I'm sorry Grandma, I forgot. Alas. Darren looked at the pair of grandchildren curiously for a while. Neville, the boy who almost did not die in the original book, and now looks really rich and interesting. However, because he did not trigger the temporary task, he did not come forward. You can only buy books first. The Ritz bookstore is located next door to the Lady Moken robe shop on Diagon Alley. The shelves here are stacked with books, even to the ceiling. Some books also fight each other. Darren also saw a book with countless strange symbols, and he was dazzled by it. Ah! An exclamation made Darren come back from these books. It turned out to be a senior girl who had been knocked down. She stood up with a frown, somewhat irritated at a boy with light blonde hair and gray eyes in front of her. Malfoy, how dare you do that? Malfoy? Darren immediately recalled Draco Malfoy in the original book. He should be the only child in the Malfoy family at the moment. He did not immediately come forward to exert his Holy Father's light, but stood aside to watch the commotion. Ah, Betsy Greengrass, who made you reject me at the ball, it's back to you. Greengrass? This surname, like Malfoy, is the forefront of the pureblood 28 families. Darren remembers that in the original book, Malfoy seems to be married to a Greengrass girl. Shouldn't that be it? The specific name Darren couldn't remember for a moment, but it was certainly not Betsy. Is it fair to say that Malfoy can argue with others? He thought that only Weasley and Harry had been ostracized by Malfoy, and by the way, they quarreled and fought once. Well, he remembered. It seems that Draco just likes to make trouble. Low emotional intelligence, poisonous mouth, arrogance, small belly chicken intestines. He shouldn't be surprised by what this guy does. Draco raised his head triumphantly. No Malfoy could bear to be rejected at a ball. Especially in the case of his unsolicited invitation. I'm sick. Betsy rolled her eyes at Malfoy. She felt that this heir of the Malfoy family had a brain problem. How could she, Slytherin's president of this year's student council, accept such a little fart's invitation to dance? So she said no, and explained by the way, that she would not jump with young children. However, this caused the Malfoy heir to blow up. Faye felt that she was satirizing him. Not only was she for tad at the ball, but even she ran to buy books and had to put up with the guy's neuroticism. What a cruel thing it is, to have an elegant lady fall in public. Malfoy, you're finished, and the glory of the pure blood cannot be offended. Betsy gritted her teeth, and when school started, she must let this nasty Malfoy know that Betsy is not here to worry about him, but is afraid of being told by others to be bullied by others. When this guy goes to Slytherin, she must punish him as the president of the student council. Even the Malfoys would not be able to say anything. She snorted. Turn around and want to leave. However, Malfoy thought she was afraid of herself, grabbed the hem of her skirt, and said triumphantly, I tell you, you think that's the end of it? You have to apologize to me for saying that your Greengrass family is inferior to our Malfoy family, what? Betsy turned around angrily. The same Holy 28 family, why is her Greengrass family inferior to Malfoy? Her Greengrass family had 4 children in this generation, and although all 3 were girls, they were far more prosperous than the Malfoys. Does he Malfoy also deserve? Ding, sensing that there was room for the Holy Father system to play around the host, began to release a temporary task, walk to Malfoy's side, frown, and say, You should apologize, there is nothing wrong with this lady, and there is no one who is inferior to others, and if there is, it must be inferior in character. Ding, after the mission is completed, get the character Cassandra Vorley favorability level plus 50, will you receive the task, Cassandra? It seems to be a character from Darren who traveled through the previous magic game. Slytherin's sister. A girl with blonde hair and a mole under her eyes. Is she real here? Also, he can cross it, and it seems that there is nothing wrong with the fake characters coming true. Pick up. Darren initially had no intention of getting involved in this noble-to-nobility affair. After all, these 2 people opened their mouths and closed their mouths to pure blood, and at a glance, they knew that they were from that kind of pure-blood supreme family. He went up to participate in the estimation of not getting the favor of the 2 people at all. Even if he was helping the girl. He might also punch a rake upside down and say he was nosy. Even dislike him. So he didn't even have the idea of brushing the father's value on 2 people. And if the character is not moved, he may not be able to brush it. However, the mission came about. Hey. It doesn't matter if he is grateful or not, he just can't get used to seeing a man in broad daylight who treats a girl so unreasonably. The light of his father will shine on the faces of these people. P.S. I originally wanted to skip the plot of these 2 days, after all, although it is easy to write every day, it is really not easy to write after entering Hogwarts. And has not been in Hogwarts, probably everyone is getting bored. But the author thought about it and decided to give the protagonist 2 reasons to enter Slytherin, and the reason for Snape to enter Slytherin was not sufficient. So this Betsy student council president was added, and there was also a card sister. With these 2 invitations, the protagonist's reasons for entering Slytherin are more comprehensive. Episode 27. Looking at the 2 people facing each other not far away, Darren's eyes gradually became serious. He strode forward, stood in front of Malfoy, frowned, and said disapprovingly, This gentleman, you should apologize to this lady, you can't push her down in public, because she refuses to dance. Nor should she be embarrassed here, or even humiliated by her family, everyone is created equal, pure blood is never superior, superior only noble qualities. Ding, congratulations to the host for earning Cassandra Vor 50 favorability for his exceptional performance, rewarding Potion's talent with 2 points. As Darren's performance is finished, so does the system's rewards. Darren quickly accepted his reward. Smack your lips in delight. Well, now Potion's talent is 8 points. According to the system, the 10-point talent of new students is considered a top genius. His potion is 8 o'clock, at least a little genius. Of course, the talent of the dark arts is extraordinary. Born with 9 points. As for another reward of 50 favorability for Cassandra, Darren also liked it. He also didn't expect the system to reward such things. Cassandra in the game is very beautiful. Don't know what it looks like in reality? The game is blonde hair and green eyes. According to Diha CP fan rumors, it was Diha's daughter. Of course, it's all rumors. They're evil words. But there was no denying that this sister did have Draco character, Harry's green eyes. And of course there is powerful magic, fearless qualities. She thought she was better than everyone else. Everyone else was her dog. Arrogant and poisonous tongue. But when a problem arises, it silently blocks the front. Such an awkward personality has made many people become her loyal fans. Of course, there are also many people who hate her, because the game officially sets her character to like evil suppression, causing various contradictions to promote the plot. People who hate her love to see her ugly. Darren lowered his head a little regretfully, not knowing when he would see the Slitholinka sister. Beth looked at the boy in front of him and frowned without a trace. As a pure-blood nobleman, but also as a beautiful Slytherin pure-blood lady. Beth has been pursued by countless lads. They appeared in front of her in various ways, trying to get her attention. Even the Malfoy cub just now was just a different way. She hated such a pursuit of means, and there was no way to say it, because it would make her appear arrogant. After all, the other party did not say the words of confession. Over time, she became somewhat fierce. Especially as long as the other party offends herself, she can definitely pull out the wand as quickly as possible, making him lie on the ground easily. Supposedly, her fame had spread throughout Hogwarts, and no one dared to mess with her without opening her eyes, so she went to the ball. Who would have thought that no male wizard of the same age had invited her to dance, and it turned out that Malfoy, a young cub who had not yet entered school, had to dance with her. Betsy knows that the other party may just be pampered at home, willful, and like her invitation, but more than that, she wants to show off. Show off that he can invite himself to dance with the Slytherin overlord Flower. As a result, she refused, and began to cause her all kinds of trouble. She wasn't actually afraid of this Malfoy at all. This guy would only be out there, and Malfoy wouldn't have been able to touch her if she hadn't dodged a muggle's touch. And if Malfoy hadn't suddenly spoken of her family, she might have left by this time. But even so, she won't do it here, and she wants to teach Malfoy a profound lesson after school starts. Let him understand that not all purebloods are like Crabbe and Gower, 2 idiots. To her surprise, just as she was about to leave, a young puppy, as young as Malfoy, came along. He also said a whole bunch of pure-blooded things that were not superior. Immature. How can pure blood not be superior? Pure blood families have a heritage that muggles do not have a more noble status, and assets that muggles do not have. Why can't pure blood be superior? Betsy thought a little irritatedly. She thought that if this boy had come to offer his hospitality, he would have thought wrong. She, Miss Greengrass. Slytherin's overlord Flower. I will never be moved by someone who has such a theory. Betsy cooled her face, and she looked at Darren coldly. She wanted this little cub to know that the glory of the pure blood could not be offended. Especially someone like Darren, who at first glance knows it's not a little cub who grew up in the wizarding world. Maybe he's still a muggle-born mud seed. Thinking of this, Betsy even began to get annoyed. She shouldn't have been talking nonsense with Malfoy here, thus attracting such a cub. She even felt disgusted at the thought of his identity. It was just that before she could scold the little boy who might be about to enter the stupid Hufflepuff, or the reckless Gryffindor, she heard Malfoy begin to sneer dismissively. I think Hogwarts is terrible, every year it recruits muggle-born mud seeds like you. Dirty and smelly, I think you may be wearing muggle clothes under your robe, right? Hurry up and get back into your muggle world, maybe you'll find muggle ladies like you there. Malfoy dragged his voice, and spoke dismissively in an arrogant tone, and he looked at Darren sarcastically. Looking into his eyes as if he were wandering, he continued with disdain, pure blood is always more noble than hemp seeds. Darren's thoughts were pulled back to reality by Malfoy's words. Look at the drag brother in front of you. He rolled his eyes. There is no need to be suspicious of the equality of life. But wizards of distinct mixed and muggle origin are better than pure-blood wizards. This guy is afraid it is not clear, Voldemort is a squib, his father is a muggle, speaking of Voldemort or mud seeds. Don't people do the same, trampling their pure blood under their feet? Laughed to death, Aren't these pure-blood wizards afraid that they are all tricked by Voldemort? Episode 28. But he is now an ordinary child who has not yet entered school, and naturally, can't understand those things. The system also did not send a temporary task. It seems that he can only solve it himself. So he smiled fearlessly, stood in front of Draco, and said calmly, "Of course life is equal, and a muggle-born wizard stands with you before the mighty, but an ant. If you step on an ant, will you still see which family he came from? So if you think that you are contemptuous of me at this time, but you can't produce evidence that my life is lower than yours, then is your behavior at this time funny? Ding, father plus 80. Ding, father plus 50. Ding, father plus 70. Ding, father plus 20. Ding, well?" Darren was confused. Seeing so many fathers worth counting, he almost cried out his voice. That's incredible, right? Logically, it is only when he should help others that he can move others and gain the value of the father. But now that he is afraid of Malfoy, he can also get father value? This. Malfoy scolding? No, 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 it should be the onlookers. Many were half-blood or muggle-born wizards. That's why this effect is caused. Those people think he's helping them? Darren was slightly excited, and he was now eager to scold Malfoy fiercely. But thinking of his own holy father, he still gave up this idea. There is a relationship that counts as a conversation. He said that it was easy to give others the impression that he was bullying Malfoy, and then it was really unclear. Darren struggled to hold the corners of his upturned mouth, expecting Malfoy to argue with him quickly. In this way, perhaps he will be able to obtain countless fatherly points. He looked expectantly at Malfoy. Hurry up and debate together." Instead of chasing after the victory, the boy just stood there and waiting for Malfoy to think about how to fight back. His eyes are inclusive, although he is a little cold, but more of a reprimand for children who do not understand things, so that people even subconsciously think back to the words he said. The same goes for Betsy. Before Darren said these words, she had hated Darren and thought he was sensational. Anyone can say that life is equal in a flutter, but they can only say this. Under the questioning of the nobles, not even any arguments could be made. Say what they tried. Joke. Pureblood wizards are also trying. Pureblood wizards aren't all spoiled children like Malfoy. They are more advocating elite education. The strong are honored. Their internal strife is even more pronounced. It's just that hidden in the false disguise of Slytherin, it's not obvious. How could such a Slytherin, because you floated a word of life equality, to believe in the equality of pure blood and hemp seeds? However, these few words spoken by Darren shocked Betsy. Yes. Darren was right. They may not even be an ant around the strong. More than a decade ago, when she was only 5 years old, she met the adult. He kills people without a word. It didn't matter which family or which character was killed. He only depends on his own liking. At that time, they were no different from the hemp wizards. They are all equal. But because of this, she will continue to work hard. She wants to break this rule and become such a big person. Since the hemp wizard and the pureblood wizard are equal in front of the big man, then she must become the big man. Becky's golden eyes shone brightly. Suddenly she smiled. Walking over to Darren's side, he held out his hands, raised his chin, and said haughtily, "My name is Betsy Greengrass, and it's a pleasure to meet you." Slytherin recognizes capable partners. Darren, who was disappointed that Malfoy's fighting power was too poor, almost smiled in surprise when he saw Betsy's palm. Aha! Isn't that another opportunity? He tilted his head in confusion, seeming somewhat surprised by Betsy's reaction. But instead of holding out his hand in the same way, he regretfully stepped back, groaned a little, and said with a sigh, "Madam, I'm not too happy to know you, because you, like this gentleman, are pure blood, and I'm not pure blood, so I'm sorry." He had an apologetic look in his eyes. He was indeed sorry for making such an impolite move. He refused the unsolicited acquaintance of a beautiful lady. But he didn't regret it. What is the distinction between high and low? He sighed softly. He insisted that life was equal. So he may not be able to make friends with her. Ding, father plus 50. Ding, father plus 70. Ding, father plus 20. Ding, father plus 30. Ding, Darren almost grinned at these fatherly values. Too much, it was so cool. Especially in the last sentence, almost a huge amount of Holy Father value rushed towards him. Although it is not as much as Paige gave, it can't stand the large number. With just a few words, he gained nearly 1,000 Holy Father values. Add to that the 200 he had harvested from Pesci last night, and now he had more than 1,200 Holy Father values. The only sad thing is that after he had just rejected Betsy in order to be cool, he turned away from the place and could not continue to harvest the Divine Father's value. Darren silently regretted it in his heart, and he knew that he would stay there for a while. Ding, sensing that there is a scene of the Holy Father system playing around the host, now release a temporary task. Block Becky Greengrass with her body, and after being under the spell, awkwardly say to her, "Don't be sentimental, I'm just running one step slower." Ding, after the task is completed, get the bloodline lottery once, will you receive the task? What? Didn't he run out? How can there be Becky's task? Darren scratched his hair in confusion and saw Becky with a straight face, carrying a wand and walking towards him step by step. Like a female warrior carrying a machete. This girl didn't come to beat him, right? And it looks like there's still danger? But. Episode 29. When Betsy held out the palm of her friendship, she never thought she would be rejected. Especially she is so beautiful, a Slytherin famous beauty. Although she has been rumored to be a bully flower because of her fierceness in recent years, no one can refuse her active gaze. However, just when she was confident, Darren gave her a huge blow. She, the big lady of the Betsy Greengrass family, was rejected by a mud seed? Forget Betsy's shallowness. She thought that anyone who could say such a thing as a quality of life must be a muggle-born wizard, and even a little mixed race could not say such a thing. It was because of this that Betsy was even more angry. Why is a mud seed so arrogant? He even rejected her friendship. Compared to this, her base Greengrass seems to be much kinder. Watching Darren lead proudly after rejecting her, Betsy was furious and chased after her with her wand. She didn't finish with this little cub today. If you can't make friends with him, use her cherrywood wand to blow this little cub's head off. As for using magic on a cub who hadn't yet entered Hogwarts, Betsy couldn't do that yet. It was only when she was about to catch up with Darren that she suddenly noticed that Darren had stopped and frowned at her. Betsy was even more annoyed. Is she just so annoying? Still looking at her like this? But she still held back and asked arrogantly, "What's your name?" She gave this guy another chance. "Get out of the way." Darren roared with rage. Becky froze in place. The nobility of the Greengrass family was exchanged for such an answer from the little cub. Betsy clenched her fists. Cold eyes. She wanted to turn and leave. However, a body stood in her way. And the guy in the black robe who covered himself with his hood shot out a green light. Avada nibbles on the big melon. You. Betsy's eyes widened. At the same time of shock, he hugged the body in his arms, and the wand pointed at the figure in the black robe. Pass out. The flames are raging. Drill the heart and cut the bones. All petrified. Becky held Darren in one hand and a wand in the other, constantly shooting spells at the black-robed figure. When Darren watched this scene, he only felt that his hair was exploding. Mommy, fortunately, Betsy wasn't ready to attack him just now. What a one-sided slaughter. In an instant, the black-robed figure fell to the ground without moving. I don't know if it's dead or alive. Betsy approached cautiously and lifted her hood with her wand. A miserable white and thin face under the hood was revealed. It was a man's face. It looked like it hadn't been in the sun in a long time. Who are you? Betsy stared into the man's eyes. The man was silent and did not utter a word. Oh, a coward. Becky stood up proudly, aimed her wand at the man, and coldly said, "Faint, faint, faint." Useful mantras are recited 3 times. Darren wondered if the man would ever wake up. After chanting the mantra to the man, Betsy fired another ray of light into the sky. It should be the person who was notifying the family. You. Are you okay? Betsy frowned and looked at Darren. There was a hint of inexplicable emotion in his eyes. She also didn't know how she felt about Darren. When she saw Darren block the death curse for her, she was shocked and only wanted to avenge him. But I didn't expect that he wasn't dead. Is Darren special, or is it a conspiracy? Darren certainly saw her suspicious gaze. With a cold snort, she struggled to squeeze it out of her chest. Don't be sentimental, I was planning to run just now, but I just ran slowly, and accidentally blocked the spell for you, so I won't help you pure-blooded people. Ding, mission accomplished. Congratulations to the host for winning the bloodline lottery once. Darren accepted the reward curiously and thought about getting out of here as soon as possible. He just remembered that Paggy had been forgotten by him at the Lycan bookstore, or hurried back to take Paggy with him. Luckily, Paige wasn't here. Otherwise, his move just now is afraid that he will scare Paggy to death. Betsy looked at the little cub in front of her who was ready to leave, pursed her lips, and thought the little cub was a little stupid. Who runs slow and gets in the way of others? And she is the eldest lady of the Greengrass family, and if someone really accidentally blocks a spell for her, she should also find a way to make her think that he is deliberately blocking the curse. Instead of being like the little cub in front of her, full of resistance, eager to clear all relations with her. It seemed that this little cub really hated her. It's just that even if you hate her, you will still fight to help her block the curse, which... A fool, right? Becky sneered at him coldly in her heart. If she did such a thing, the Greengrass family would remove her, right? What a nasty little hemp cub. The Greengrass family will not forget your credit. This is my Gringotts key. There are 30,000 gallons in it, which is a part of your reward, and I hope you don't tell what happened today. Betsy lifted her chin. I just feel a little ashamed in my heart. If she hadn't spent golden gallons randomly, she would now be able to save 100,000 gallons. Instead of taking out this mere 30,000 gold gallons, pretending to be generous, and handing it to this little cub. Shit. What a shame. If this little cub had told others that she had bought such a golden gallon, her Becky reputation would have been lost at Hogwarts. And, you, come with me to St. Mungo in a moment. Of course, you hemp seed. Little farts may not know what Street Mungo is, but I'm sure you'll know it once you go, Betsy snorted haughtily. The palm went up and held out her palm again at Darren. This was the last time the big lady of the Greengrass family put down her body to someone. Just because of his saving grace. Hurry, I want the phantom shapeshifter. How can I go without holding hands? You think it's okay to hit a death curse? You think you're Harry Potter? Beware of sudden death here and leaving your parents sad to die. Episode 30. Darren didn't want to go to St. Mungo's. However, the noble Becky girl simply ignored his decision. He did not listen to what he said, and finally simply carried his phantom transfiguration and went directly to St. Mungo. It's arrogant to the extreme. I just don't want to watch you suddenly die violently. Betsy snorted coldly. Pushed Darren to St. Mungo's hospital. St. Mungo's hospital is as lively as Diagon Alley. People here are strangely injured. Darren also saw a wizard come here with antlers on his back and asked if he would die if he cut off the antlers directly. There are also people running here with exaggerated twists and turns. Oh my god, stop me, I'm going to die of exhaustion, really exhausted. Hiss. I don't know what kind of magic this is, so miserable. Ding, sensing that there is a scene played by the Holy Father system around the host, is now releasing a temporary task. Eavesdropping on Mrs. Longbottom's conversation with the doctor, she then travels to the hospital payment point and reloads the 30,000 gold gallons that Becky gave to the Longbottoms account. And say the sentence, I'm just an obscure ordinary person, please don't publicize my appearance, thank you. Ding, after the mission is completed, get Voldemort's bloodline. On the night of torturing Lily, Voldemort's bloodline is quietly lost. Will the host receive it? This? 30,000 gold gallons are not too rare. He was mainly marveling at the bloodline of that Voldemort. What was the night that tortured Lily? He remembered that Dumbledore had said that Lily had been taken away and tortured by Death Eaters. How could this still involve Voldemort? And? Lost your bloodline? No, how could he be a little confused? Is the rest something that Darren can see without paying? Pick up. Although shocked, Darren quickly picked it up. He looked around. There should be Neville around him. Neville, go talk to Mom and Dad. Just as Darren was anxiously searching, he heard a familiar name. Look at the sound. Sure enough, he saw Neville and his grandmother. Old Lady Longbottom was very old. Her face was covered with wrinkles, the corners of her mouth were downwards, and she didn't look easy to get along with. She was now instructing Neville to go to the ward and stay outside to talk to the doctor. Darren took advantage of the fact that Betsy was looking for the doctor's office and quietly leaned over to listen. Mrs. Longbottom, this medical fee is not enough again. Yes, I know they are for the wizarding world. The hospital is not a charity hall. Well, then you figure out how to do it as soon as possible. The doctor hurried away. Mrs. Longbottom lowered her head and sobbed loudly, then hurried back to her previous expression and calmly walked into the ward. Gone, what are you looking at here? Becky grabbed Darren's clothes and pulled him out of the corner of the eavesdropping. Darren shook his head. He just lamented that there were people in the wizarding world who looked down on the sick. Not to mention the original hero. No wonder Neville's first wand was his father's. The official story is that in order to become a man like his father, maybe the family is really poor. Although the Lombardin family is considered to be a 28 holy family, only Neville's uncle Algi is left in the family to support the family. And also to bear the burden of two younger brothers who live in St. Mungo, younger siblings, obviously not making ends meet. He wasn't in a hurry to donate money to Longbottom's account now, and Becky followed him. The Slytherin girl was already suspicious, and he donated money in front of her, and maybe she thought it was a show, and it was more than worth the loss. Although he is a showman, he is also 30,000 gold gallons. I don't want to be judged that way. Here, I have made an appointment to be afraid that Mr. Scott will examine you, and that Mr. Scott is also my cousin, the famous physician of St. Mungo. Betsy's tone was a little ostentatious. Darren quietly rolled his eyes. He followed Becky into the office of the fearful Mr. Scott. There was only one patient left here, and when he saw them walk in, he quickly got up and left. Oh, noble Miss Greengrass, it is a pleasure to be here. Afraid that when Scott saw Betsy, he greeted her happily, as if he wanted to hug Betsy, but Betsy frowned and avoided her. I'm afraid of Scott. I hope you're serious, there's an outsider here. She pulled Darren out behind her. Darren shyly laughed at Scott. Oh, I don't know which little young master of the family can make Betsy care so much about you. Afraid that Scott would touch Darren with his wand while joking at Becky. Betsy snorted and replied that you should take care of it, and her eyes were on Darren. Well, apart from being a little malnourished, the rest is healthy, and the other tests have to touch the core of the magic, and that needs the consent of this gentleman. Afraid Scott would laugh and put down his wand. Becky's character, he knew, would not stay with any wizard who was not pure blood. So this little gentleman should be the little young master of which family? These noble young masters did not dare to casually touch their magic core, that was to be sued bankrupt by these nobles. Are you sure? Betsy raised her voice. I'm afraid Scott won't pay attention to her. How could his profession be inaccurate? How can this be? Betsy frowned and muttered. But without saying anything, he said goodbye to afraid Scott and walked out with Darren. Little cub, as your future sister, I give you a word of advice. Don't tell the outside world about your experience, especially, don't say that you have been hit by the death curse. Forget this, understand? Except for Harry Potter, no one can be hit by the death curse and not die. Harry Potter protected the wizarding world, and Dumbledore hit him again, so that he could be safe. But this little cub was not so lucky. Let people know about him, maybe tomorrow he will disappear into the wizarding world. I'll get rid of that guy as soon as I go back. Don't say that you leaked your mouth yourself, and then you lost your life, but I didn't hurt it, lol.